Hi, my name is Brandon Kyle Goodman, and you're about to watch the first installment of my new project that I'm calling Black Folks, which is where I have these one on one conversations with different Black people of various identities, and we talk about life and how being Black has shaped our experiences. This first episode is with my big sis, my one of my closest friends, the love of my life, my prayer warrior, Miss Alesha Reneé, who is not just a phenomenal actress and an incredible TV personality, she's also a phenomenal human being. She is hilarious. She's gorgeous. She is kind and loyal and generous, and it is a privilege to know her. And I am looking forward to you getting to know her during this conversation. We laugh quite a bit. We also unpack some heavy shit, and so I hope you're down to go along for the ride. Just a little note, this is the first episode and it is self-produced, honey. So there are some jump cuts, a couple, one or two in the beginning. But it's bearable. I swear it is bearable. So keep watching and keep enjoying. You can watch it on my IGTV page at Brandon K. Good or Tom Ellis's IGTV page at official Tom Ellis, or you can watch it on my YouTube page, youtube.com/ Brandon Kyle Goodman. This is my conversation with Alesha Reneé.
Well, Alicia,
Aw.
I'm very excited that you're here. This is Alicia Reneé.
You say
Er.
If I didn't know you were Christian, I would literally kick you through the room.
You ain't gotta do me like that. You ain't gotta do
Happy
me.
anniversary.
Thank you. Yes.
Here's our husband.
Okay, first of all, that's my husband. First and foremost, let's not get that twisted.
Look, where's our husband? Where he at?
My husband is in the
Ooh.
bedroom. I don't know where our husband.
Our husband. See, I'm gonna remember that next time I start clocking these ovaries. I'm gonna remember that.
Surrogacy.
I'm
Hello.
gonna remember that.
Carry our babies.
Oh my God.
And my honey.
Wow.
So for those who don't know, this is Alicia Reneé, and how about we start here?
Okay.
Because I thought this was so beautiful. Somebody said, had me introduce myself,
Yeah.
how I wanted to be introduced. Because,
Okay.
people, will run off a whole list of things. So why don't you introduce yourself?
It's it's so crazy because someone said that to me before, and I'm like, God, where do I start?
Mhm.
Let's just say I am a child of God.
Hey, my God, my God, my God. Yes, come on.
Won't he do?
Won't you do
Won't
it? Yes.
do? No, I think all the other hyphenates, actor, creator, TV personality, those come secondary to I'm just a woman trying to live in her purpose.
Hey,
I'm an actor as well. That's how I met and fell in love with Brandon. We
yes.
did a pilot together for NBC. Their loss,
Talk about it.
our game.
Talk about it. Wait, can we tell that story? I was
Huh?
actually going to say we should tell that story, which is that you and I. So we
Are we telling the?
we're gonna tell the cute version of the story.
Okay.
So you and I, we actually did. I was a guest on that show you did on VH1,
Yes.
which was like Thanksgiving movie. It was you,
Yes,
Michelle
Michelle
Buteau, and Jade.
Jade. Talk Soup and Talk. Is it Talk Soup?
Talk
And
Soup and Michelle
various
from
movies.
everything. So I was like a little
Always
guest that
my
came.
maybe to be more.
Always. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So I came in and did like a little guest spot on the marathon. And so that's
Yeah.
how we like originally met. And
Yeah.
I loved Alicia from the moment I met her but I was also like so scared. So we flew
Right.
back. Well, we flew back because you're gorgeous and you're fabulous and you're
Get into it.
hilarious.
What else you got?
Iconic. You're a queen. You
I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna let you speak that over me. Yes, and more yes.
Yes. You just have such a beautiful energy. And so we were flying back to LA and I saw Alicia. Alicia had the first class. I had, just regular class.
Last class.
They weren't treating me like
recognize it.
they didn't recognize it yet. They didn't recognize it. But I saw you and I was so scared to like approach you for whatever reason. And then it just so worked out that a month later, we both booked the same pilot.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you
No,
off.
yeah.
What I think is so beautiful and fortuitous about our relationship is the fact that, we both changed our flights. We both take it.
Yes.
That's what you're missing.
Oh
Because
my goodness.
I think that there's a beauty in us recognizing that everything is divine and it's ordained, and people come together when it's supposed to be. Like, we were meant to be together and have more than just a passing relationship.
Yes,
You know,
absolutely. We
so
changed our
sorry.
flight.
Go
That's
ahead.
no, that's beautiful. We changed our flight. So I saw her then, and then uh I just for this pilot, which was like right before pilot season, like December. And I think Alesha found out she was like, when did you find out you were cast?
Maybe like 2 months before.
Before shooting.
Yeah.
I found out like they had the table read. They had the table read.
Oh, I
And
know this.
there was like whisperings of it, but I wasn't at that table. And then there were whisperings of me being cast, and then I got cast, and so we
The
spent
shade is so cute and classy. I love it.
so cute. So we did that shoot together. But this is where we were like, oh, this is a thing.
Come on.
Turns out, so I was couch surfing because I had just moved to LA. So I was couch surfing in my friend's newly married, their apartment in Larchmont. And Alesha was also transitioning between places. And she was also
Out of a previous, I moved out of my home that I shared with this guy that didn't deserve the air that I put in his direction. I'm gonna let that sit.
Amen. I was gonna let percolate. Let that.
Let it sit.
Amen. Because we know our worth. Because we are what? Children of God. Amen. Okay. So we even after shooting the show, I would always see Alesha drives this big ass car, and I would always see this big ass car in the parking lot of this apartment building across the way. And then finally, I don't know if we ran into each other, but we realized that we had been living across the street from each other for months.
Yeah.
For months, we had been
Park
living.
there sometimes, and it's
Yes.
funny. You would see my car, and I would see your car because the car you had was very recognizable.
That cute little blue
And it
Toyota
was
Prius.
neon. You know what I mean? And
I called her Blue Ivy. Blue Ivy Goodman was her name. Blue Ivy Goodman.
aptly titled. Aptly titled. And mine was just too big. Big Bertha.
Very big.
She framed her. And
Yeah.
very recognizable, attributes on both vehicles.
Absolutely.
But, sometimes when you're in your own space, and I think you were in a space mentally at that time, and obviously I was in a space coming off of a heartache and heartbreak and transitioning, getting out of the old energy, looking for new, because yes, we missed the fact that we were across the street from one another for literally months.
For months. And then once we found that out, we became inseparable. And so Alesha became just like my sister, my big sister, my family, just the person that I lean on, my prayer partner, prayer warrior, just
vice versa.
All the things. So I'm so happy you're here, and I'm so happy that we get to talk, and I'm so happy that now people kind of know. So how I want to kind of start this conversation off, because I've told you kind of the point of these conversations to me is to expose people to one, for us as Black people, to just get to see us enjoy, just get to see our fellow Black people enjoy, and hearing our experiences and seeing the nuances and the complexities of us represented. And then for those who are non-Black and who are white, to be able to expose yourself to more experiences than what you see in media and what you see.
What is this Black magic that we got going on around here?
That's why we call it magic. Okay, we call it Black magic for a reason. Black girl magic for a reason. Black boy joy for a reason.
Come on.
It's just full, and it's complicated, and it's nuanced, and it's beautiful. So the first question I'm gonna ask you, which is a kind of a big question.
This water first.
That water, let me sip my water. They're gonna be real crazy. Yes, I have a gallon of water. It's a gallon.
It's allergies.
That's all right.
No.
Take that Claritin D. I get you, girl.
You have to let people know that, though.
Oh, right, because of Corona. I keep forgetting. I don't know about you, but I keep forgetting because of.
A lot of people are forgetting, as if, now that outside is back open. I'm like, so meanwhile, back at the ranch, Corona is in the corner somewhere. Like, oh, you girls thought I was done? That's what y'all thought?
You thought this was over. Okay.
Wait on me though. Wait on me. Okay. I'm ready. Come
You
on.
ready?
I promise,
Okay.
guys, we have some sense about us. I promise.
I get it. So the first question is, when did you realize you were Black?
Uh,
Not corona.
not corona.
Allergies. Yes.
Very much so allergic to what's going on right now.
I mean, we can't tell because to us, you're a queen in Egypt right now.
Get into it. You know, it's so funny. The first time I realized I was Black, God, that's such a loaded question.
I know.
Mainly because we face our own trials and issues just within our own community. Like some of my earlier memories of just the trouble of really, like, you know, you said we're nuanced. Like Black people are not a monolith. And the thing about us is that we have to learn how to live in different spaces. We code switch, for those who don't know what I'm talking about.
Talk about it.
And sometimes that exists even within our own families, right? So growing up in Lake Charles, Louisiana, my mother did not allow us to speak slang. We had to use proper grammar. So whenever we would go back home to the South, my father was in the military. I'm a military angel. Whenever we would go back home to the South, I literally would have cousins say, "Oh, you trying to talk like you white?"
Oof. Yes. Yes.
What, girl?
Yes.
So I think just my first experience was just realizing my first experience of Blackness was the experience of being told I wasn't Black enough.
Right.
Does that answer that question?
Oh, 1,000%. Yes.
So that's why I'm saying it's such a loaded question, because that was my first experience. But, you know, being told by these streets that I'm Black was probably this woman. I was raised in Wichita Falls, Texas. Like I said, father was an Air Force airman. And she said, "Oh, you're very beautiful." I probably was 10. Again, you know, myriad of other experiences that happened prior to, but this was something that really jarred me, mainly because she said, "What's your ethnicity?" You know, mom was somewhere, we were at the grocery store, and the woman was like, "Oh," and I'm like, "I'm Black." You know, no, 12, sorry, 12. Because I just got my period.
Oh, yes. I love that.
For the woman.
She's a woman
She's
now.
a woman now. And she's like, "You're so beautiful for a Black girl."
Oof.
And it didn't dawn on me. I mean, I say that with a smile now, but back then I remember being so cut.
Well, yeah, it was a cut.
Yeah.
That beautiful for a
Black girl. Yeah, I heard that a lot growing up in the South. You know, born in Louisiana, raised in Houston, Texas. That phrase, it hit me a myriad of times. So, that's such a loaded question, but I hope that answered it.
No, that answers it. It's funny. I went to school in the South. I went to high school, boarding school, Rome, Georgia. And so I think there were times before that then I realized that I was Black, but definitely I grew up in Queens, New York, and went into the city. So not that there's no racism inside of New York. It's
Let's be clear.
I still can't hail a cab. Thank you. To be very clear. I'm actually so grateful for these taxi apps, because now I can actually get a car. But I think because I went to the United Nations International School, so it was like we were of all ethnicities, and I had a teacher that was like, "It's not about tolerance. We want to celebrate our differences." So that's how I was being like brought up in school, which is beautiful.
Beautiful, yeah.
And then I went to high school in Georgia, and
they let you know that 100%.
and they from jump, they were like, "Black?" Black. The first question I got asked was, I'll never forget, I think it was English class, and this kid, whose name I will not say because he does not deserve
space out of your mouth.
Deserve the air. But he was in the back of the classroom, and like I was from New York, so I'm like, you know, and he was what they call a day student, meaning he was local to that Georgia, and I was a boarding student.
I'm a day student.
Day students. Honey, this school was rich. Anyways, and I'm not rich. I was there for a scholarship. Let's be very clear about that.
Well, you know, all you Blacks are there on scholarships.
You know, that's how they look at it. Yeah. All of it. That or an athletic scholarship.
Ooh, we oh my, the honesty, the truth. Yeah. And honestly, in actuality, we weren't all on scholarships, but I was. But yes, the
You know
black
what I'm
people,
saying by that.
you know, I know what you said, but the black people, yeah. Oof, sorry, I'm having so many emotions because it's like,
You got triggered. I'm coming for you. We're gonna just be honest about it.
triggered. I feel like that needs to be like a button that we press during this when you're triggered. So he says, do you play on a basketball court like the one in Finding Forrester?
See what I'm saying?
No one knows if I'm athletic. No one.
Yeah.
I'm not there on an athletic scholarship. I'm in an English class, and immediately his reference to my blackness is a basketball court like in Finding Forrester.
Yes, you can't possibly, you know, afford to be here on your own merit. It has to be one of other things.
It has to be athleticism, you know, or it has to be some kind of
financial assistance
to be able to be here, the assumption behind it.
Yeah.
And the question's not really, and yes, I recognize that we were 14, sure, but you know, this also comes to how we are raised and the communities we're raised in, where it's like, if you're actually interested in me, then ask a question of interest, not a question of assumption, right?
Yes.
And you know what I think about with that story and with your story about like Pretty for a Black Girl, it's like what I hope people will understand is that language is harmful. Language has a potential to be extremely harmful.
Right.
And so even if you are exposing yourself to somebody who doesn't look like you, who doesn't love like you, who just is a different background, and you want more information, there's a way
to phrase questions and it doesn't, you know, come off negating the beauty in your skin.
Yes.
The ability to be able to afford to be in spaces where other people would deem you unworthy.
Yes.
Not financially viable to be there, or relegating it to how a lot of people view Black bodies, you know, solely for entertainment or sports entertainment. You understand what I'm saying? It took me a long time to kind of get my head around beautiful for a Black girl.
Oof, yeah.
And not feel like I needed to swing on someone whenever they said it. Pause, take a break. I didn't ask, shamefully enough, and I think it's because we find ourselves oftentimes in spaces where we're not afforded to be angry about what someone says or does towards us because it feeds in the narrative of the angry Black woman or the hostile Black man. To be able to say, well, what do you mean by that? What is pretty for a Black girl? What does that mean to you? How do you view the beauty of Blackness? And when someone says that to us, it's really negating the beauty in our skin.
1,000%. Well, we become this exception, right? Beauty is not Blackness, right?
The rule of beauty, yes. And how many times, you know, have we heard it be said that, God, I just want to open the magazines and see someone who looks like me. And we're fighting so much to get, you know, images of us.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean Blackness in all its splendor, in all its full splendor, the myriad of shades that we come in, ways that we live our lives, the full expressions of us. And so when you say pretty for a Black girl, in that moment, it really diminishes hopes and dreams.
And to say that to a child.
My God.
To say that to a child, like to what baby Alesha had to absorb in that moment and what baby Alesha had to reckon with in that moment.
It's such a formative time. Said, you know, at first I misspoke, but I'm like, no, actually, God, it was when I was 12 because I was experiencing something else that made me feel, you know, or that society tells us we now have become a woman, you know, getting my first period. And someone has taken away my sense of feeling beautiful in this skin. that I'm in when I'm also experiencing womanhood.
Yeah. And you know what's also interesting too is, by the way, just a reminder for the
Hi,
people,
Corey.
my dog is here. He's about to go on a walk. So
I fuck you.
he will be moving around and my husband will come through. But I think what's interesting is that no matter how much, if you are fortunate enough that your parents, your Black parents, are conscious enough to continue to pour into you and to instill in you that your Blackness is beautiful and like in a real conscious way, it still isn't enough because you go off to school and you're confronted with their, you know, bullshit.
Yeah.
Or you go, you turn on the TV and you don't see yourself, or you go to the grocery store, you see a rack of newspapers, you don't see, or magazines, you don't see yourself. And so it is, so representation is so important because there's only so much that you as a Black parent can do. It's like, somebody said this about when Obama won.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's like we could tell our kids, you can be whatever you want to be. But there was never an example that like, oh, you can actually run the country.
Office we could actually have was, yeah.
There was never an example of it. So you're
Yeah.
saying it, but it's not being absorbed because there isn't an example of it. There isn't reinforcement of it. And so when that happened, suddenly it was like, whew, I feel like parents were like, oh, yes, you can be whatever you want. See? Whereas before, especially for us growing up, I think it's, you're beautiful. You are gorgeous. You are
But
beautiful. But am I? I'm
am
not seeing it. I'm not,
Yeah.
no, I'm not seeing it.
Yeah, and I think, and maybe I've had this conversation with a lot of my other girlfriends, and maybe my perception of it is a little more skewed because I grew up in the South.
Yeah.
And, I grew up in a time where racism was very prevalent. Like I said, I lived in Wichita Falls, Texas, which at that time was the Klan capital of the world. Like, I remember my mom crying because she lost her job at the bank because this woman who was really stealing money from the bank for so many years ended up blaming it on my mom. She was a white woman. And
oh my God.
My mom is Black.
Yeah.
They took, the other woman's word over one another. And then the way that the branch manager chastised her on her way out, it just, so for me, I'm lucky that I'm seeing now more communications and advocacy for mental health, Black awareness. Like, I was one of the first people to start the My Black is Beautiful campaign that originated at BET, and it's now gone on to do such beautiful things on its own. Because these weren't conversations that we were having freely in my household. A lot of other of my friends who are from the South, it was always stay in a child's place. So but now, when you know better, you do better. And so now that we are older, we can recognize, and you and I have had these conversations ourselves, about forgiving our parents for what they didn't give us, be it edification of how we look, or our smartness, or, how we love, because they had their own traumas and their own issues and their own things that they had to figure out how they could contend with, that they couldn't be, a provider and comforter to some degree all in one.
Triggered.
Some families were able to navigate.
Triggered.
Take a time out, coach. So I am encouraged to a degree about how our young people are growing up now, because they are seeing non-people of color marching alongside with them, saying that enough is enough with the effery. I don't know if we can curse on here, so I'm trying
to. We can. It's going up on places because I have a potty mouth, so
I was trying to keep it cute for you.
I know. I'm not Oprah, so you could curse all day.
Less. So young people are growing up seeing other people, shoulder to arm with them who don't look like them, validating their right to live, validating their right to walk down the street, validating their right to sleep in a car and not come up dead. My God, so, but at the same time, I hurt for them that these are still things, that these are still burdens, that these are still issues that we are still having to carry.
That's the pain. I think that's the pain inside of all of this, right? Like there's this, I would say, like, on one hand, in this recent kind of awakening, you're like, yes, finally, come on, yes, I
Oh,
see.
white people,
Come on, white people, yes, allies, okay, come on.
Let's go, allies.
Let's do it, allies. Come on for real. I see you.
I get one more. I am an ally. I'm an advocate. I'm listening.
What I just want y'all to be about
Triggered.
Be about that action.
Just that action. Listen, I love your text messages. I love your DMs, but what's the action, right? So on one hand, there's the I don't want to say joy, but the relief of pressure a little bit of like, yes, I'm not crazy. Like we've been having these conversations together forever.
They've been still alive for years.
For
and
years.
they always like to go back. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you
No,
off.
please,
But
please,
it
please.
was important that you used for a lot of Black homes. The arrival of President Barack Obama gave us hope, but at the same time, it's the thing that was used to negate what we have been saying for so many years, that racism
Yes.
that Black people can't get ahead.
Yes.
Well, not a Black president. What did he do? And it's like people don't take the time to realize that even though we had a Black president, we didn't have control of House or Senate. So he was filibustered more than any other president in history, 500 times. So the man couldn't even do what we all voted and hoped for him to do while he was in office, until it was his final term.
Which is why
of ordering everything left and right.
Yes, which is why those elections, all the elections are important.
Elections,
come on.
More specifically.
Midterm elections. Come on. Like, the presidential is important, yes, honey, but also, anyways.
Different show. Call me back. Have me come back a little closer to
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, yes. We'll be talking. But I don't remember what I was saying. It doesn't really matter. But I think the point of it being that inside of the relief of white people being aware, there's also the pain that it took this long. Right? There's also this like trauma in why did it take you so long? You know, and wrestling and allowing both of those emotions to exist. But it is the pain, part of the pain inside of this for us.
Having to care. And I think it's fair. I honestly do. I think that it's fair to have an experience.
Hold on, I'm gonna pause you 1 second so that Honey can do his thing. But you remember that thought. This is my husband. He gonna be in He can't hear you in my ear. He's in the air. He says hi. Hi, baby. He says hi, baby.
Tell him I said happy anniversary.
He says happy. Oh, she says happy anniversary. Oh, thank you, sweetie. We say thank you for me and my husband. Thank you. Thank you, Alesha Reneé. Thank you, Alesha Reneé.
Can you get your own man, girl? Can you get your own man?
Alesha Reneé. Alesha Reneé. You see me blocking my husband. Right? Alesha Reneé. Alesha Reneé. How dare you?
You are so petty. Don't live
you.
your life like that.
Thank you, husband. Thank you. I see you.
Why do you keep trying to keep me and Matt away from each other?
Listen, what the people don't know is that I actively try to keep them away from each other.
It's so disgusting. It's hilarious. I'll come over for dinner and I'll be like, oh, where's Matt? He's not here. Mysteriously, he's busy. Like,
I invited you over when I knew he wouldn't be here.
He's always busy, never there. I started to catch on towards the end. I'm like, Brandon only invites me over when Matt is
Absolutely. I see the way y'all look at each other. Oh no.
He's such a phenomenal man.
Oh, he's the best. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No. What was I saying to you? God.
I just finished saying about the wrestling of, or allowing the joy and the yes.
And it's fair for both of those things to exist, in the same space, because it is really challenging for so many years to have, carry the burden just within our own community. and
Yeah.
saying out loud and speaking out against the atrocities that happen towards us, how we're depicted in media, you know, how on a 24-hour news cycle you will see Black bodies butchered and thrown aside and beaten, but you never see that for any other ethnicity outside of color, right? And we say so many times that this is wrong, this is an injustice, why is this happening to us? And there's literally Jiminy Crickets coming from the areas that we really need to help push this forward. Because I'm very clear, and a lot of us are very clear about the fact that the civil rights movement was able to be what it the platform that it allowed to happen to some of the things that we're experiencing today, some of the freedoms that we're experiencing today, because we had other people of color who were marching along, who weren't of color, who are marching alongside with us. A lot of our Jewish brothers and sisters, a lot of white, you know, men and women came up missing alongside with our Black bodies, right? But then it's like somewhere along the way, it's like we stopped being believed. We stopped being advocated for. And when you see that it took, and this is where I try to release that pain, and I try to release that understanding to my higher power, just so I can function. Not look at the next
Talk
white
about
person with the side eye.
Yeah, talk about it.
I have to release it to everything in time. And maybe because we find ourselves globally in a space where everyone is literally sat down in their homes, confined to only what they see via on TV or social media or on the phone, no other outside distractions. And they're able to see how these same weapons that were used to dehumanize Black bodies, Black lives on the 24-hour news cycle.
Yes.
And they see so much of it now because that's all they can see because there are no other distractions.
Yes.
And now maybe that's why we're seeing so many white people coming to the realization that, oh, y'all weren't tripping.
Yes, I 1,000% agree. I think there's something about being trapped and having nothing else to do, having no distractions, not being able to be like, oh, this is happening over there. And I think also for, oh, what? Oh, that happened where? Not here. Okay, bye-bye. I also think for us as Black people, or I'll also just speak for myself, I don't know how you feel, it's like the pandemic is enough. Like worrying about being killed by the pandemic and knowing that Black communities and Black and brown communities are being disproportionately affected by this was enough. So on top of that, to then add Ahmaud, Brianna, and George, and Tony, and Elijah, and Dominique, and all these things, you're like, this is too much. Enough.
Yeah.
Like, I will say for myself, I move it through in a lot of white spaces just because of the nature of our business, which we can talk about hopefully in a second. And so there has been a training, I think, a conditioning that I've had growing up about how to compartmentalize these things, how to not bring your full, because you don't want to be seen as dangerous or threatening or angry. So you learn how to tone police yourself so you can be safe in these white spaces. And so you show up in these white spaces with white people who do care, who I think care, but you look fine.
Yeah.
You seem fine.
We had to seem fine and we had to look fine because I think you said it before, the caveat in what you mentioned was having the space and the freedom to be able to be in your fields. And we were never given that.
Never.
We were never given that. It's, you can't be on the job and you can't bring on, can't bring into the job what we just saw.
Yes.
You can't bring them out there. Can't bring Brianna there. Can't bring Elijah there. You can't bring Dominique there. We have to deal with that within our own community. So what do you have? You have a generation of people that are conditioned to being insular versus being able to express, I'm angry, I'm hurt, I'm disappointed.
Yes.
I feel worthless. I feel unseen. I feel unsafe.
Yes.
Because for so many years, it's like the blind leading the blind. If you're bruised, broken, and hurt, what can you offer me? because
Mm.
you're bruised, broken, and hurt. And whatever little energy and space you got, you have to use that for yourself. You don't even have the capacity to be there for me, and it's happening to us. So not only are we having to be conditioned to be insular,
Mm.
but I can't even really come to you, truth be told, because you're carrying your own weight and your own burden.
Yeah, I'll say in our experience, like I realized that I had a Zoom with some of my friends from college who are Black, and we've kind of all stayed in touch. And we had a Zoom, and it was all kiki and funny and joy. And then we got into it, and it was kind of like realizing that we don't really unpack this because we understand that it's triggering. It's already triggering enough as the individual. And so when you're like in a space with other Black people, you just want to feel joy. And so unpacking this with each other also feels triggering and traumatizing. And how do we hold space for each other, and how do we, reckon with our mortality, and how do we reckon with, the code switching and all that stuff. So we're never really,
It's to heal and move forward, because it's a
it's
freaking
cyclical.
24-hour news cycle. We
It's
speak on the 24-hour news cycle with one another.
yes.
I had a conversation. When are you airing this?
I believe July 4th.
Okay. So
Hopefully it's Independence Day, because we want to redefine what the fuck that is.
that lives, right.
Yes.
I had a conversation with, Charlemagne the Goddess,
Mm-hmm.
my friend. And we lost another friend to suicide.
Ugh.
And it just goes to like what we're talking about, when not only is our skin weaponized, but our experiences oftentimes are squelched and not believed. And we don't have spaces outside of ourselves that we can talk to and say, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
You and I are the strong friend in a lot of our, circles, friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're conditioned to have to be strong, we're not allowed to be vulnerable and be weak and be fragmented and not looked upon as it being a weakness. The strongest thing you can do to someone is say, hey, I'm not okay. Do you have the capacity and the ability to take on some of what I'm going through right now, because I can't do it on my own? And we lost 2 people. By the grace of God, that's all we'll lose between now and when you air this, just in less than a 2-week time span. So not only do we have to deal with how we are disproportionately dying from COVID, but also just the mental things that it's doing to our psyche. We don't have a place that we can go to and escape and not see Black bodies dropping on the news left and right. So I got to live with the fact that I don't know if when I come out of this, like I lost 3 jobs before going into this. Get it? We're actors. You win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
But how will I be able to provide for my family coming out of this? Because let's also start with the fact that financially, we already come in.
Yes.
I don't know who I will be when I come out of this, because I also mentioned the fact that mentally, there aren't so many spaces that we can go to not be okay.
Yeah.
And be okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how this is going to affect my family coming out of this, because there's so much fragmentation within the Black familial structure.
Yeah.
So much, I got to look out for me while you take care of you, because we've been placed in a crab in a bag.
Yeah. Yeah.
There can only be one. There's
1,000%.
not enough.
1,000%.
Scarcity.
Absolutely. That scarcity mindset is what runs the system, is what keeps the system going, is what keeps. First, I want to say I'm so sorry about the loss of your friends.
It's funny because I was asking him, I said, Rashard, like, how are you feeling? He's like, I'm numb. And I'm like,
yeah.
I feel, I saw Elijah, and I think the thing that really hurt me is he looks so much like my brother. And my brother is very gentle too. He's jacked.
Mhm.
But he is the kindest and the sweetest person you'll ever know. You have this Black boy who plays violins for kittens, who, when someone had him in a chokehold, turn your camera around. Dude, check your camera. It's in the transcripts. He's saying, I forgive you. You're beautiful. I forgive you. You are beautiful. To the men that would subsequently take his life, how do you, as a Black person, come out of this business as usual? How do you, as a white person, come out of this business as usual, denying that there are forces out there who lean into the fragility of whiteness? And you don't take up the cross and the fight
Mhm.
to dismantling socioeconomic, health, financial,
Policy, political, yeah.
political systems that have been erected against a Black boy being able to walk home from the street in his jolly, having a ski mask on, because contrary to what some of y'all's presidents have been saying, trying to protect himself from COVID and other people, and he's anemic, he needed to cover himself. So he was doing what he was supposed to do. But some Karen or Bob called the cops on this man because how dare you walk down the street with a mask on in your jolly
Yeah.
just because you're Black. You gotta be up to something.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
No,
Next.
no. I'm quiet because I think that,
I'm sorry. I didn't mean
no, you don't apologize.
to.
That's the purpose of these conversations, you know? That's the purpose of talking about these things with each other, because
But that's the thing. Like I honestly I feel so much rage. I'm not
yeah,
even gonna lie. I feel rage. And I want to scream because in order to not react on my rage and look at every non-person of color with the most sus side eye that they've been giving us, I have to grow numb. I have to literally intentionally stay off my social media feed or post filler, because if it's too much for me, I'm thinking about the Black girl who feels like she doesn't have anybody that she can talk to and turn to. Maybe she needs some reprieve from seeing Black bodies being slaughtered in the streets simply because they're Black and simply because they're just existing. And so we don't even have the space to be able to say, what the fuck is wrong with y'all?
yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I'm numb right now. I'm numbing myself right now, which I realize, and I feel like this is a good time to say that, because, and probably talking about it will unnumb it, so forgive me. Um, every time you see somebody get killed, or I see, you know, somebody in a headline, I do immediately connect it to somebody that I know, because I know, and I've said this, that it really only feels like luck that keeps us from
We're in
getting
the
that
fucking
phone
Hunger
call.
Games. May the odds ever be in our favor.
Literally. And so, in order to like do, because being a human, right, is already challenging, as you said. Like, what are the finances after this? What are, you know, your goals, your career goals, your family goals, your whatever, all these things that we are already as humans just trying to deal with. But on top of that, as Black people, you're also trying to stay alive. Literally, you're trying to get home.
Yes.
You're trying to take a run. You're trying to sleep. and into those things that are just human things, walking home, taking a job, sleeping,
Playing in the park with a
you-
toy gun.
playing in the park with a toy gun. You
Yeah,
get killed. Social worker trying to protect his client gets shot on the ground, hands up. You know what I'm saying? And like, these are the things that I want white people and non-Black people and people who are trying to be allies to get curious about, and to be upset about, and as rageful as we are, and fight it, because
it's
I
y'all
think,
who put it up there. It's y'all who designed the system. You can't expect the slaves to reinvent what the slave masters have put into.
right.
And I'm not
You're the one in
calling
power.
us slaves. I'm saying
No,
it
I
goes
know.
all the way back.
Absolutely.
I have to give context, because some people
Absolutely.
say that one little caveat, and
Yeah.
like you can't expect the oppressed people to fix what the oppressors have put in place. It is for y'all. So it is
Yes.
extremely frustrating when a white person will come up and say, well, what can I do? Well, you can educate yourself.
Absolutely.
The systemic ways that Black people are kept down. If you find yourself at work and you see a Black person being
You speak up. You speak
and
up.
say something. If you're out in a public space and you see a person of color being berated or being treated differently than you are at the cash register, speak up, say something, call y'all. Sometimes the offenders have to speak to the offenders for the offending people to listen.
1,000%. They'll listen to you because you look like them, and that's just the conditioning. And hopefully one day we'll be able to abolish all of that. But right now that's not the case, and it's going to happen for generations. So it's like, step up and step into it. And we have to, unfortunately, wrap this conversation up just for time, because
this has to be a part two. This is not
this is not done.
Not at all the best place.
You and I could talk forever. Well, no, but what I wanted to say was, when you said speak up, what I think is so interesting, I'm going to share a story about a time that you and I were driving together. And it's like, that energy that you exhibited is what white people need to be doing, which is, we were driving, and I'll never forget, there was somebody being pulled over by a cop, and Alesha slowed her car down, rolled down the window, and yelled out, "You good, fam?" And she waited for the guy to answer that he was okay. That level of investment and curiosity and protectiveness that we have for each other as Black people is what we need white people to have.
Yeah.
And it's like, that moment for me is seared in my memory, just of like, that's just a good person, right? But you also know what's at stake. You know how quickly that interaction between that Black man and that police can go left.
Yeah.
And so to just keep walking is irresponsible.
Yeah.
At this point, as white people, as non-Black people, to walk away
when you see it happening,
to not speak up is irresponsible.
And it makes you complicit. It really does.
Oh, yes.
I really feel like inaction is an action.
Absolutely.
Towards the negative. And silence is complicity. I really feel that way.
Yeah.
I know we have to go, but just one caveat: if you can do anything, use your voice, use your privilege, use your platform to protect Black spaces, Black bodies, Black rights, Black needs. Fight for it, stand up for it, because when you don't, even if you're trying to not rock the boat, you are basically saying, I think that's okay.
Yeah. Can I ask you one last question?
Please.
What would you say to little Alesha, who experienced that beautiful for a Black girl? What would you say to her right now?
You're beautiful because you're a Black girl.
Mm.
You were, you are, and you will always be more than enough.
Alesha, I love you so much.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you.
I love you more.
I love you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you guys for listening.